What's up guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today this is going to be another pattern tutorial which I know you all love so much. I'm going to be showing you how to make the pattern for the popular twist front dress. So this is a dress design that I've already seen back home, and I was always curious of how they made the pattern for the dress or how it was draped on the stand. And you're just in luck because I'm going to be showing you how to make this pattern. It is the first attempt for me, so I'm just as curious as you are. If you'd like to see how the pattern is made, make sure to keep on watching and also join the DIY fam. Like, it's as simple as clicking the subscribe button and turning on the notification bell so you'll be the very first to know whenever I have new videos up on the channel every week. So if you'd like to see how this pattern is made, keep on watching. To create the pattern for this dress, I'm going to be using my usual pattern tools. I have my roll of pattern paper, which is really nice and sturdy. I'm also going to be using a long ruler for my really long lines. I got my set square as well as my pattern master because they help me a whole lot. I'll also be needing my marker pen, some tape, a measuring tape, as well as my paper scissors. So you will need to get down the following measurements to be able to create this pattern for yourself. You need your full dress length, how long you want the sleeve to be, how wide you want the sleeve to be at the hem, your waistline, hip line, as well as the width around the bottom of the dress. So I'm just going to go in and plan the front. The first thing I did was I drew a horizontal line which would help me plan the front neckline. I'm just going in to mark 8 centimeters down the center front and 8 centimeters along the shoulder and sort of in the middle as well, diagonally, and I'm going to be connecting those 3 8 cm points together to get our nice round front neckline. So next up, I'm going to be drawing in my shoulder line, and since it's going to be a kimono sleeve, it's just going to be one long shoulder sort of sleeve length, and the sleeve I worked with is 49 centimeters, and I'm just going in here to draw a straight line at first, and then I'm going to go ahead and drop that line by about 10 centimeters and then connect it to the neckline of the front. So I'm just going that and connecting that line using my long ruler, and then I have my new shoulder line. So the width of my sleeve hem is 10 centimeter because I want the hem to be a little bit narrower than the top part of the sleeve, and you see how that gradually comes together. So next up, I'm going to be marking 43 centimeters down the shoulder, which is my waistline, and then I'm going to divide my waist measurement by 4 and mark it along this horizontal line that I'm drawing here. So if you're making this for yourself, you want to go ahead and get your waist measurement, divide it by 4, and then mark it along this line here. So at first I took about half an inch away from this measurement because I want to make this dress in a stretchy fabric, but I changed my mind later and I just decided to work with my full waist measurement, and if it becomes too baggy or too loose or has negative ease, then I can always take that out through the side. So I just went ahead and I connected the waist to the hem of the sleeve, and I'm just going in here to mark my hip line, repeating the same thing I did for the waist. That's divide the hip by 4 and then mark that quarter of hip measurement along this horizontal line here, which is the hip line. So out of the screen here, what I did was I got the diameter of the bottom of the dress, and then I divided that by 4, and then I went ahead to connect it to the hip and then connected it to the waist. So as you can see here, I'm just going along and connecting my actual waistline to my actual hip and just smoothing out any sort of pointy edges that I have. So now the basic front is sort of done, but I want a V-shape neckline that really dips from the neck all the way down to the waist of the dress. And once that is done, this is what it should relatively look like. So I went in ahead and I added my grain line. I just smoothed out any pointy edges that the dress had along the side. This is what the hem looks like, and because I wanted the dress to have a pencil silhouette, the hem is narrower than the hips, so it sort of skims along the body nicer. So I added extra paper along the center front because I want to extend the center front of the dress a little bit more. So first up, I'm going to be dropping the waistline by 5 centimeters and just mark 5 centimeters along the waist and just connect it like so. So we have a new waistline which we're going to be working from. So once that is done, I'm just going to extend the center front by 7 centimeters along our new dropped waistline, and I'm going to be connecting that point to the shoulder or to the neck, and I'm going to be connecting that point to the hem of the dress. So this will make sense when we actually begin to slash and spread this dress. So I'm just connecting that new 7 cm extension drop waistline point to the hem like so, and the dress should look like this. So next up, what we're going to do is we're going to be marking 3 lines on the top and on the bottom half of this dress along the dropped waistline. So I'm going to get a tape measure and my long ruler because we want to spread these lines evenly along the dropped waist. So the lines are spread by 2.5 centimeters beginning from the front, and I'm just drawing that first line and it ends along the hem of the dress. I'm extending it again by 2.5 centimeters to get the second line, and this one goes into the side of the dress along the bottom half, and then the third line, which is 2.5 away from the previous one, is going to end just beneath the hip line. So once we've done this 3 for the bottom, we're going to do 3 for the top, and they are going to sort of start from the same point along the dropped waist and go into the shoulder of the dress. So I'm just going to repeat the same thing for the first, second, and the third, and you're all separated along the waist by 2.5 centimeters. You don't have to spread them as much along the shoulder because you want to add more volume along the bottom of the dress and not along the top. So once that is done, I just went ahead and I cut out my front because we need to cut open those lines and spread it on a bigger sheet of pattern paper. So I'm going to get a scissors and I'm going to cut along the lines that we just drew along the 3 on top, along the 3 on the bottom, and along the dropped waist. But before we cut this front panel open, we're going to go ahead and trace off the same shape for the back. So I've moved out the extension in such a way that the center front line is just along the edge of the paper, so we don't get that excess on the back of the dress. So I'm just going in here and I'm tracing along the side because you want the side of the front to match the side of the back. And I went ahead and I drew in my waistline, the original waistline, not the dropped waistline, my waistline, my hip line, and we're going to be taking in the center back by about 1.5 centimeter along the waist because the back is not going to have any darts, but at the same time you don't want to have too much bulk along the waistline on the back of the dress. So I'm just using my pattern master and connecting that 1.5 drop to meet the rest of the back of the dress, so is a nice smooth curve from the top to the waist and around the hip side. So I'm going to go in and fix the hem of the sleeve, and you want to be able to fold in the hem backwards in such a way that there are no gapings or weird bendings. So I'm folding the pattern inwards like I would want to finish off the hem of the sleeve if this was fabric, and I'm going to trace along this actual curved line which the sleeve of the dress has and along the shoulder. So by the time you fold this open, you get the direction in which the pattern and the fabric should go if you want to ideally fold this backwards to finish off the hem of the sleeve. And this is something that you would do if you're going to finish off hem of sleeve dresses or trousers if they have any kind of curve or any weird shape that isn't straight. So I've gone ahead and I've added my 1 centimeter seam allowance along the side, along the center back, and along the shoulder as well. So this is what the back of the dress looks like. I ended up adding the seam allowance for the shoulder later on, but I just added 1 for the center back, the side, and 2 centimeters for the hem of the dress. I drew in my grain line and I wrote out how many pieces I need. You will need 2, 1 for the left and 1 for the right hand of the back of the dress to join to the front. So once the back is done, it's time to move ahead and slash and spread the front panel. And first off, you need to cut along the dropped waist so you can access those 3 lines that we drew for the top and the bottom. And I'm just going in here and I'm cutting through the lines like so, and you want to cut up until the very edge of the paper, so it's easier to spread when it's time to sort of spread these pieces open. So this is what all the panels look like cut and spread, and I had to go to the floor because the table wasn't just wide enough. So you would need to cut out a really long pattern paper, at least 2 meters long, to be able to accommodate this thing. And I'm just spreading like so, just to get an idea of how much paper I need. And you will need to cut this dropped waist point almost to the very edge so it opens easier on the pattern paper. So now I'm going to grab my tape, and the first part I'm going to tape down is the sort of the center front, or the front of the dress, which should ideally be straight. You want this point to be straight, and then you go ahead and start spreading the other panels outwards. So once we've taped down all of the front line of this front panel, I'm going to be spreading the panels by 7 centimeters. So starting from the top one like so, I'm just using my tape to measure 7 centimeters between the first and the second, and I'm holding it down with some tape onto the fresh pattern paper underneath. So you just really need to repeat this for all of the tops and all of the bottoms, and you want the top panels to sort of align with the bottom panels as you're spreading them out, because that way you have even amount of ease, or even amount of sort of openness added to the top and to the bottom half of the front of the dress. So now I'm just going in here to tape down all of my edges, my tops, sides, bottom, everything. Just tape it down because you want to be able to have one full pattern piece here. So I'm just connecting the side, which should really be open if you've spread out everything, and you want to connect it with a curved line before going ahead to add my 1 centimeter seam allowance, as well as 2 notches along this point, because these would help you when it's time to connect the 2 sides of the front of the dress together. So I'm just going in here to add a 1 centimeter seam allowance all around the front of this front panel, and this is what it should look like. So I've added a 1 cm seam allowance along the side, and I added 2 cm along the hemline, and added 1 cm along the front and 1 cm along the shoulder, because you want to be able to connect the shoulder points of the front to the back. So this is what the front and back patterns look like. The patterns are done as of now, but we're going to go ahead and test them. So I ended up adding a bit of extra paper and adding a 1 centimeter seam allowance, so you can be able to attach the front of the dress to the back of the dress to the front along the shoulder. And I've also cut out my front pattern, and this is what it looks like. You want to be able to have seam allowance everywhere so you can join the pieces together or to make one dress. So I've just gone ahead and I've cut out my front pieces only because I was really curious to see how this would turn out, and I'm just pinning it down on my mannequin to check if I like the feel and the fit of the dress. So the way it works is you twist along the waist, and you would twist it in such a way that you wrap one piece around the other, and then you join them along the waistline like so. So I'm just using pins to just connect it temporarily to see if I like the dress so far, and I've just pinned this left side, and I'm just going ahead to pin the right side along the waistline. So by the time you stitch up that waistline point, you have that twist detail in the center front of the dress. So once I've pinned that in place, I'm just going ahead and I'm just pinning it into the mannequin to just check if I like the fit, the sleeves, if I just like the general feel of the dress. So you can see, because it's calico, the fold looks rather bulky, so it's advisable to do this style with fabrics that drape easily, like silk, chiffon, anything that you know would fall nicely on the front of the dress to prevent excess bulk. But if you guys would like me to do a separate sewing tutorial, please give this video a thumbs up. I'd love to know all of your comments, thoughts and suggestions down below. And until my next video, have a good morning, afternoon and evening wherever you are. Bye.